Ladies and gentlemen, there's a line that we have said to ourselves and made ourselves believe to accept this world and adapt to its POV that we have. What I'm talking about is a good and a bad phase. Whenever you have a gloomy, bad day, you think that tomorrow will be better. Whenever you are going through a depressive and in a broke state in life, you think that tomorrow or the next month or the next year or that particular good phase is coming in your life. And you think that this is how the world operates. Today I want to question the reality of it. Like, is it the nature of universe? Is it the nature of this world? Or is it the nature of this reality that after a negative phase, after a bad, dark day, there will be a good, sunny, shiny day? Or is it just a thing that we love to believe and it helps us live? It helps us reduce our anxiety. It helps us reduce and think that we have more control over life. Or is it just a little delusion we have in our head? Let's tackle it all. The first thing you need to understand, which even I thought about, is that is this something which we have adapted nowadays due to social media, nowadays due to more exposure of these narratives that I was broke and now I'm rich, or is it an ancient wiring in our body? And I realized that it's a need of human. Because a neurosystem, our brain is developed in a way, our frontal cortex especially, decides to avoid all of the negative situations. So let's say you are going to an exam tomorrow, then your frontal cortex avoids the situation where you will fail, and it only shows you the positive outcomes, the optimistic outcomes that yeah, you're going to pass. Another thing is that humans usually have this optimistic bias that good things always happen to me. I mean, 80% of humans believe that the future outcome they're thinking of will always be in their favor. Whatever their positive outcome is, they will obviously get it. Like, it's just natural for them. That's how they think reality works. 80% of humans on this world. Another point is there's a study done by Alloy and Abramson. And what they did try to research was that depressive people and normal people, what's the difference between them? How do they perceive reality? How do they perceive day-to-day arguments and how do they make the decisions? Turns out, ladies and gentlemen, that depressive people see the world in a hyper-realistic way. They actually take way more clinically better decisions than us normal humans. Depressed people see reality in a very predictable way, in a very non-optimistic way. They see the way the world is. They do not apply a lens over their face. They see the world, they apply the logic, and they think about the predictable outcome. Now, that outcome isn't probably in the favor of good, but turns out that outcome is way more accurate than us normal humans. And that is because our neurons are ancient wiring. It's the need of human to have a control in life. And second, it's a way that if today is a gloomy day, tomorrow will be a better day. Humans just need this optimism in order to survive. Now, let me take you to a very dark theory, and we'll connect both of these things. The dark theory is terror management theory. You think about death, and you think about there's nothing after death, and you cannot accept the fact. You fall into anxiety that at some point you won't be there and there would be nothing. The nil, the zero, actually scares you. The nihilistic identity of this world scares you. And so you don't want to accept the fact that after death there is nothing. So you start to believe in religioustic constructs. You start to believe in the concept of God. You start to believe that there is this afterlife, there is this hope that I would be there somewhere. Life is going to prolong it. Now, it is a very core nature of any kind of species, any kind of organism, that they don't want to completely end themselves. They want to either reproduce, they want to have their offsprings, or they just want to survive themselves. Adaptations, evolutions, and even perseverance all suggest to the same point that survivorship is a thing. Everybody wants to survive. Nobody wants to willingly die, leaving these suicidal thoughts aside. Now, what does this connect to our today's topic, which is good or bad, and how does these phases interconnect? Well, the point which I was trying to suggest is that there's this anxiety factor. And to avoid anxiety, you create beliefs that there is no end. There will be a good thing after that. So there's no bad phase which is congruent throughout your life. There will be a change. There will be a better way. And your sort of bad and better or good or bad is throughout the life and throughout the different situations you have been in, which constructs what's good for you and what's bad for you. The way you have lived the life, the way you have gone through the different influences in your life creates that this situation is bad for my life, and then there would be a positive situation. And that optimistic nature and that anxiety that I don't have control over my life adds up and creates this belief in your head that there will be a good day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if this is true, that this is just the way how humans love to portray the world, then it's very wrong, right? Like, how can humans just directly believe some random thing? And if it is false, or as I'm suggesting that there is no reality, that there will not be a good phase after bad phase, it's not like confirmed or it's not like a law of universe, then why does this happen so often? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there comes the survivorship bias. If I consider an explosion, okay, now in the explosion, let's say just one survivor is left, one witness left of that entire huge explosion event, which let's say killed 99 people and only one survived. Now, when we interview that guy, when we ask the guy some questions, he replies that there was a horrific event. People were shouting, screaming, boom, boom. And it sort of creates an image in your head that, oh my God, that was such a gruesome event. But let's just hypothetically also understand that if there's an explosion, Before you actually try to process something, you are dead already. So maybe that was gruesome event in terms of blood, in terms of dead residues, but I don't think that would be a gruesome event in terms of people getting tortured, screaming. That's just how survivors spoke to you. Let me put it down in other terms. Whenever someone says that I was broke, I was in humble beginnings throughout my life, and now I'm rich, is that one guy who made it out. Is the one guy who collectively had a good day instead of a bad day. And he transitioned from bad to good. And that is one survivor you have. And it's a tendency of human to have this survivorship bias. Whenever we listen to a few stories that these guys have transformed, we tend to believe them and we tend to overly exaggerate them. Let me give you an example. Whenever someone says that I'm now a millionaire and I was once a broke kid, then you start to believe that, oh, I can even be a multimillionaire. But that position is 0.001%. Let's say you even know that being a multimillionaire is 0.001%, a very rare event. But you still start to think that the rare event is for me. I am that rare person. I am the main character. That ego is also involved in this entire thing. That you start to believe that it's me, obviously. I am going to do it. That 0.01% is made for me. And so survivorship actually becomes the biggest thing. And I see 90% of the startups fail. Now you hear the story of only 10% of the startups that succeed, and you think that when you go out and create a startup, it's going to make multimillionaire or it's going to $1 billion new unicorn, but maybe it's not. Maybe it can never be. Now, the dangerous implication is that if we only hear from the survivors, we obviously will massively overestimate the probability of that thing happening. So when you hear from a millionaire who was poor and broke, you think you overestimate the situation that if I am poor and broke, obviously I'll be rich. Like you just overestimate that event. But no, the probability still is 0.001%. The chances of you becoming that are 0 to none. And that's how life is. Now, if that's how life is, then why do we believe in this thing? Why does placebo is even a thing? If you don't know about placebo, there's a doctor. He decided to do a surgery, a knee replacement surgery, something related to surgery related to knee. Now he operated on two people. On one guy, he did a fake surgery. Like he did everything, like just, anesthesia, everything in a professional way, but did not do any surgeries. Made the guy believe that his surgery was done. On the other guy, he actually performed the surgery. Later on, it was found that both of them had equal recoveries, equal time to respond. Both of them actually, went out of their problems and lived a happy life. Now, what does this suggest? That sometimes your belief can actually tend to create some kind of a biological change. So if you believe that there is something good happening, that I don't have this. There's also a case, let me give you an example. There was a painkiller given to someone who had some pain. Okay. Now to one guy, the painkiller was $1,000. And so the guy was like, okay, if this is $1,000 and if this guy is giving me one pill, obviously he's going to cure me. And the other guy was given it for free. Like, take this painkiller, just have it. Now both the painkillers were same, both the guy had the same pain. But still, the $1,000 one turned out to be more effective. This is a placebo. This is an overestimation and likelihood of achieving that event because you have already invested something. You have invested money. So you think that this thing has to be better. You start to believe that it is better. And it leads to placebo effect. Now see, ladies and gentlemen, placebo effective has 30 to 40% of effectiveness. It's not completely true. Like if you start to believe that you are not having a cancer and you're completely fine, it doesn't mean that every time you're going to get out of cancer. But sometimes it just helps. And it just mentally, it avoids that anxiety situation. Because let's say if you're in a stage 5 cancer, if you are just about to die in 6 months, and if you start to feel the anxiety of death, you won't be able to live those 5 to 6 months peacefully. So instead, people try to adapt to these ideas and understand that maybe the world operates in my way. Maybe it's a good phase. It's a la la land. We'll talk about it in the philosophical section where we discuss more about Sisyphus. But here the thing is that there's a reticular activating system. Now, what it does is your brain filters information based on what you focus on. Okay, so if you let's say believe that there's a good thing coming, the good things might actually start to come in your life, because it's not that there were no good things or there were just bad things. As you started to say, or as you started to believe that good things are happening or good things will happen, your brain actively tries to search for these opportunities that make you feel good. Okay, and so you might think, oh my god, it's a magic. No, it's just your brain trying to look to find some events that releases that dopamine, that releases that oxytocin, and gives you that bit of happiness, gives you a bit of emotional kick. Now, in physics, there's always this observer problem. Any physics problem, no matter how you calculate it, I used to make a lot of mistakes in physics because of this. I used to calculate an entire answer, but I used to forget that the observer was sitting on top of a trolley or something in that kind of a problem. And I used to forget that, and I used to calculate my force, and I used to get my answer every time wrong. My physics professor told me that you have to focus on the observer. You have to consider yourself sitting in the place of an observer. And that's why life's expectations usually affect the outcome. Now, as a third person, things might seem legit naturally flowing or maybe just seem actually this is how world operates. But to that person, to that observer, to me, to you, world flows in your way. How do I say this? Your expectation about the life actually tends you to shift around and get the outcomes in your life. So you cannot separate a believer from belief. It's that kind of a situation. If you start to believe in something and if you actively focus on those things, then yeah, maybe world operates in a different fashion. Now, let's also discuss something about willpower, because willpower has been around these topics and around these discussions a lot, because willpower is the main ignition, is the main fuel for you to go from bad to good. Okay, let's discuss about that topic. Oh my god. Willpower and the motivational side of it, it's pretty fantasy. Okay, it's pretty fancy. I don't know how to exactly explain, but it's movie-esque. What I'm trying to say, willpower is literally a concentrated form of belief. And literally, willpower is directly proportional to belief. Now, people usually tend to make a mistake that willpower is some kind of an internal strength you have to do a thing that leads to discipline. No, it's not. See, humans are a very emotionally complex creature. And as I said, if you believe in something and you tend to believe in an outcome after doing something, you're more and more ready to actually put in the willpower, put in the work to reach to that level. So the ability of you, okay, so let's consider an example that you're going to gym, okay? Now in your head, you think in 2 months you should have a clean ass body if you follow everything. Now for 2 months you follow everything and you see no change in your body. So you are like, okay, this is shit. And that breaks your belief, because your belief was based that 3 months I make a beautiful body, I follow everything. Now you did everything in order to reach that 3 month goal. The 3 month goal is not realistic, maybe. It was just optimistic. And so you see no change and your belief breaks down. So what is willpower exactly? Is a form of concentrated belief. You don't do something, to push past your limits or something. You just don't do it in a natural fashion that, oh, I want to go from good to bad. You do it for the outcome that comes after your working phase. So willpower and belief is actually making you tempted for that outcome that you're perceiving to achieve after doing the work. And that's how willpower actually makes you do the work. Because your belief is so concentrated that, yeah, I'm going to achieve it. Now, once again, if I just for a second think that, okay, it's not a survivorship bias, okay, some people actually achieve it, then how? It is because when you are actually so concentrated on a belief that I will be successful, I will make money, I will get a lovely wife, whatever, when your brain starts to function in that way that, okay, I'm looking for these things now, at the same point you have an optimistic bias, so you every day wake up thinking, yeah, I'll do it. The third and the biggest point is that you have that concentrated belief set over there. So now you think it's very easily, naturally flowing process for you. And let's say if nothing breaks your belief, then let's say you get an ear for that thing, to be rich, or to find a good girlfriend or whatever. You have an ear. Now in an ear, if you actually have willpower and have a concentrated belief system, that makes you try multiple variables within that ear. So if you fail, doesn't matter. Your belief is still intact. Your willpower is still intact. You'll keep going. Now what these David Goggins and these kind of people do is they try to motivate you to get willpower and to not remove your focus from belief. So their point of view is, in a way, that you believe in something so good that it becomes a part of your reality, and you think that this is the way how life operates, this is the way how reality operates. That's not the actual reality, by the way. But you start to believe it so much that you fail, but you still believe in it. So you try 100 times, and one time it just clicks. That is what I'm talking about. If your belief is intact, and if you are ready to keep doing it again and again, then the desired outcome you have will be achieved. And so it's not the way how world operates. If someone slaps you, then tomorrow they won't be convicted for something, or someone isn't going to slap them back. That's not how the world operates. If you had a bad day today, tomorrow also you can have a bad day. Day after tomorrow you can have a bad day. You can have a bad day for next year. But the point is your belief intact. See, these are all fantasy things. To consider life is divided into two phases is a very fantasy nature that we try to adapt ourselves to make the world very perceivable, very, very likable to our worldview. You know what I'm saying? And that's how our brain operates, that's how our psyche operates, that's how our neuron operates, that's how even the philosophy operates. Let's understand that. Let me ask you a question. If throughout the eternity, okay, like for years and years to come, until your death, or maybe even after that, if there's something you believe, you still have to go through that bad phase. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking you a question. What if you keep going through this bad phase? What if this bad phase never ends? What are you going to do then? That's my point. The same thing happened with Sisyphus. When Albert Camus mentioned about Sisyphus, he was mentioning this exact problem, this lackness of meaning in life. And this exactly what we think we need: optimism, we need a meaning, we need something to push for, is our search for meaning. And life provides no meaning. Life has just given you the straight fact. You want to accept it or not. There's no meaning to life. There's no significant involvement of you as a human in life. At the same point, you want a meaning. You want your reasoning to stay. And that's what I asked initially, is that you don't even want to believe in the concept of life after death. And you also don't want to believe directly in the raw truth that there is no life after death. You're in middle. And the point I talked about is usually people fall in anxiety, and that's what Albert Camus says. That Sisyphus is pushing the boulder. Who's Sisyphus? Sisyphus is punished by gods to stay in a loop of eternity. Eternity. There's a mountain. Okay? Sisyphus goes on, pushes the rock, a huge rock, a boulder. He pushes that boulder to the peak of mountain. And the boulder again pushes down. Sisyphus goes down again. Sisyphus pushes the boulder again falls down. Sisyphus keeps doing it, keeps doing it, keeps doing it, even though he knows that this is an repeatable event. This will happen for infinity. This is never going to stop. He still keeps doing it. And what Albert Camus says is that one must imagine Sisyphus to be happy. One must think that Sisyphus is happy. And that's the point. Life is supposed to be lived. Now, if you fall into anxiety that you're going to die in next 2 days or next month or next 2 years or next 50 years, or you purposefully involve yourself so much into life that, I just don't want to involve myself in these questions. Let me just do my work. Let me just make a good body. Let me just earn a bunch of money. Let me just do all of those worldly things and involve myself in it to avoid these questions. Whenever I die, I die. I love to stand in between, ladies and gentlemen. I don't tend to avoid both of them. At the same point, I don't tend to accept both of them. But I stay happy. Because I do neither. I neither avoid them, I neither accept them. Now that's a question to think about. What would you do if you had to live this depressing or whatever phase you are in throughout the eternity? What would you do then? What would be the question then? These are the things to think. These are things to ask the questions about. And there's only one truth, one fact. I thought about life. I thought about the universe. I thought about this negligible existence of us as humans, is to just ask questions. What else can we do? That's it. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you at that question, and I'm going to ask you to think a bit after you finish this video, and I'll meet you in the next one. Until then, let me take a leave.